To be a top-tier professional wrestler, you need to be good at a lot more than just the actual wrestling part. That does help, obviously, but the bigger stars are usually the ones who can talk the talk as well as walk the walk. Of course, some wrestlers were able to achieve a significant degree of success despite not necessarily possessing the gift of the gab. But how much further could they have gone if their marbles weren't full of mouth? I'm Sam Driver from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 10 great wrestlers who were terrible at promos. Join us! Number 10, Jeff Hardy. Simply put, Jeff Hardy had it. The rainbow-haired warrior was naturally cool and charismatic, and people were drawn to him because of this. Whether it was his unique look, penchant for performing crazy stunts, or some other indefinable quality, Jeff became so popular that it eventually convinced WWE to put the world title on him. And while Jeff typically produced the goods inside the ring, particularly if he was put in a specialty gimmick match, his work on the stick was a different story. Though you could probably rattle off umpteen memorable Jeff Hardy matches and moments, you'd be hard-pressed to recall a single one of his promos. He just wasn't a strong talker and often looked like he was acting badly as opposed to just talking naturally. Don't get me wrong, in pre-tapes he was passable and everything, but you never really got fired up or invested in a match by listening to a Jeff Hardy promo. His older brother Matt, however, was a much more confident promo guy and would typically carry the load for the team. Number 9, Billy Kidman. The rise of talented high flyer Billy Kidman was one of WCW's real homegrown success stories. Kidman began working for the promotion as a bland jobber, but left as a genuine star and continued to enjoy a decent career in WWE afterwards. A multi-time cruiserweight champion, Kidman's probably best remembered for matches with the likes of Juventud Guerrera, his tag teams with Rey Mysterio and Paul London, and his storylines with The Flock, and somewhat bizarrely, Hulk Hogan. The man who helped popularize the shooting star press was a dab hand in the ring and usually had exciting matches with his fellow cruiserweights. But his work in segments and promos was considerably less remarkable. He tended to talk better when he was a heel and once cut a half-decent promo on the Hulkster, but Kidman's another one who did his talking in the ring and was never really put into angles or storylines that required him to recite an impassioned monologue. The bloke was clearly a smooth talker enough to bag Tori Wilson, but he wasn't the guy to talk you into buying a pay-per-view. Number 8, Lance Storm. If I could be serious for a minute, Lance Storm was a very good professional wrestler. Few were as smooth or technically sound as Laugh-A-Minute Lance, who made an impact in Japan, ECW, WCW, and then WWE. Generally speaking, he had good matches everywhere he went and became known as one of those guys who could work with just about anyone regardless of how good they were. When it came time to talk, however, Storm's monotone delivery was a turn-off for many. Lance was well-spoken and could get his point across, but the dry way in which he delivered his message earned him the tag of someone who lacked charisma. WWE famously leaned into this by having Steve Austin roast him for being boring during a segment on Raw, after which they tried to liven Storm up by giving him the gimmicks of Dancing Man and Man Who Secretly Has a Huge Hog. Couple of real winners right there. The former Intercontinental Champion's lack of pizzazz ensured that he stayed mired in the mid-card, regardless of how skilled he was on the mat. Number 7, the British Bulldog. We all love Davey Boy Smith, but has there ever been a more ridiculous man? And I don't just mean in wrestling, I'm talking about in the world. Having traveled the world gaining experience in his native England, for Stampede in Canada, and then in Japan, the British Bulldog knew exactly what he needed to do in the ring when he joined WWE in the mid-1980s. But wrestling was only part of the package, and whenever Davey Boy was required to talk on the mic, the results would be, how do I put it, inconsistent. He wasn't short on confidence and usually had a rough idea of what he wanted or needed to say, but the delivery could be comical, which might have had something to do with his thick northern accent. His promos usually contained several of the tropes of the era: a loud voice, plenty of finger pointing and flexing, and at least 5 instances of "let me tell you something" to start off a sentence. But there was always something a little off about them, whether he wanted to or not. Number 6, Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio is quite obviously in the GOAT conversation. And not just in terms of greatest masked wrestler or greatest cruiserweight or anything like that, Mysterio is just one of the very best to ever do it, period. A revolutionary high flyer who broke down barriers and achieved a level of fame and success that few would have predicted for him when he first began wrestling in America. Rey is one of those wrestlers that never seemed to have a bad match. And since he was so exciting with his innovative moves and intricate spots and had the cool look and the mask and everything, it's not like he needed to be a world-class talker to get over. And to be fair to Mysterio, he did get better on the mic as his career went on, but when you put his linguistic skills up against most other main eventers, they don't really compare. Rey connected with and continues to connect with audiences because of the way he wrestles and sells the natural charisma that comes through during his performances. Not what he says in promos. Dirty Dom surely must have got it from Eddie. Number 5, Lita. Like her Team Extreme cohort, Jeff Hardy, Lita had that cool factor that just can't be taught. She wasn't the greatest wrestler in the world, but Lita looked and acted the part. I mean, seriously, how can you not cheer the chick with red hair who hit men with hurricanranas and moonsaults on the reg? Like, come on. Lita was different from everyone else at the time and stood out due to her originality and willingness to take some serious risks in the ring. And when she later turned heel and shacked up with Edge, she played her role perfectly, and the two became an iconic pairing thanks to their natural chemistry. Though she wasn't the type to regularly produce great matches, the WWE Hall of Famer does have a few bangers on her resume, including a couple with Trish Stratus and a surprisingly good late career effort against Becky Lynch. Lita's natural charisma was not matched by her ability to cut a winning promo, mind, and sometimes her interviews and performances on commentary came close to ruining the illusion. She had her moments. The promo she gave on the Raw before Survivor Series 2006 sticks out, but Lita will not be remembered for her talking. She'll be remembered for wrestling with her undies sticking out of her pants. Seriously, why didn't anybody ever tell her? Number 4, Sabu. Whereas most on this list would have given promos the old college try, Sabu was steadfastly against speaking in public. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Real name Terry Brunk, the man from Bombay, Michigan, was reportedly scared off from cutting promos after his mother said she hoped she wouldn't see him on TV ranting and raving like his uncle the Sheik. Far from holding him back, Sabu's decision not to speak only enhanced his aura further and made the battle-scarred human highlight reel seem even more dangerous and mysterious. On the few occasions he actually did speak on the microphone or during a pre-tape, Sabu was clearly uncomfortable with it. Luckily, when he was in ECW, he had manager Bill Alfonso and tag partner Rob Van Dam to essentially cut his promos for him. But when he later went to WWE, Sabu recalled being forced to do pre-tape promos by Vince McMahon despite his protestations. To make matters worse, McMahon hated the results and felt it ruined Sabu's mystique. Sabu knew he didn't have the acting chops, but he was a damn good wrestler, and nobody else on the planet could have done it the way he did it. Number 3, Shelton Benjamin. The Ohio Valley Wrestling Class of 2000 is rightly held up as one of the most fruitful periods in WWE's developmental history. After all, it produced future WrestleMania main eventers in John Cena, Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar, and Batista. Yet even in that star-studded crop, Shelton Benjamin stood out to his trainers and peers as perhaps the best pure athlete of the bunch. A former amateur wrestler and then wrestling coach at the University of Minnesota, Shelton could do everything physically and wowed with his incredible athleticism. On the main roster, Benjamin continued to stand out despite his relative inexperience and would go on to have a tremendous WWE career across 2 runs, bagging the tag team, Intercontinental, and United States titles. But for all the amazing matches and jaw-dropping moments, the gold standard was routinely criticized for his weak promo skills. He had charisma and a certain swagger, no doubt, but it could be hard for him to express himself on the mic. Had Shelton been more self-assured with his promos, there's no telling what heights he could have reached. Number 2, Chris Benoit. When it came to the bell-to-bell portion of professional wrestling, few, if any, were better than Chris Benoit. The rabid Wolverine grew up idolizing the Dynamite Kid and focused all his energy on becoming the best in-ring performer he could be. Japan was the ideal place for him to perfect his craft, but training with and working for New Japan meant that he never fully developed his promo game. When he began working more in the United States, Benoit had to talk more often, and the results were not pretty. If he had to say a few words, his short-lived "prove me wrong" catchphrase for example, it was fine. But if he had to memorize dialogue or go tit for tat with someone more charismatic than him, which was pretty much always the case, it was bad. In WCW, Benoit had the benefit of being surrounded by great promo guys as a member of the Four Horsemen. While in WWE, he was given Shane McMahon as a manager for a time. When he was on his own, the crippler struggled to string a sentence together. But then the bell rang and you forgot all about whatever the hell he was trying to say. And number 1, Dean Malenko. Dean Malenko may have been the man of 1,000 holds, but he was a man of substantially fewer words. Malenko was, like Benoit, another wrestler who dedicated most of his time to the actual wrestling part and spent a significant portion of the early part of his career plying his trade in Japan. Dean's specialty was walking into the ring, putting on a clinic, and then leaving the ring, his job for the night done. How he applied holds and found ways to out-wrestle his opponents was captivating, but when it came time to show some personality in segments or in interviews... Reputedly one of the funniest guys in the locker room who had a quick wit to go with his dry sense of humor, Malenko never really showed it in front of the camera. His promo work was about as basic as it got and often got criticized for being bland or boring. If you're struggling to recall a Dean Malenko promo, it's probably because ECW, WCW, and WWE rarely gave him the opportunity to talk, knowing that it wasn't his strong suit. That is, until WWE made him a James Bond-esque ladies' man who lusted after Lita anyway. I can't believe that didn't unleash the Iceman's Riz.